Hare Krishna for a few more minutes, and then we're going to explain a little bit about what we're going to be doing today. I'd like to welcome all those who've come for the first time, and anyone who's watching online. Hi there. Have you been before?
I live upstairs.
Oh, you live upstairs. Oh, that's right. You're Vera's friend. Oh, what's your name? Milan. Nice to meet you, Milan. I'm Caitanya. Thanks for coming. So, we're going to continue with a little more chanting of Hare Krishna, which, interestingly enough, is the topic of tonight's discussion. The importance of chanting Hare Krishna along with the benefits, and particularly focusing on chanting Hare Krishna this week. Namah Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prasthaya Bhutale Srimati Bhakti Vedanta Swami Niti Namine Harinam Sankirtan Yoga Ki, Hare Krishna Maha Mantra Ki, Srila Prabhupada Ki, Shri Shri Panchatattva Ki, World Holy Name Week Ki, Nittai Gaur Premanande. Hare Krishna. So thank you for all of those who have just come in during the Kirtan. And I'm sure there'll be some more who come in as we get closer to Prasadam time. There you go, confirmed. So, today, although we usually speak about from the Bhagavad Gita on these Friday nights, and we're going through the 16 different themes in the Bhagavad Gita, at the moment we're on the characteristics of the self-realized person, or the enlightened person. But this Friday and next Friday, we're going to be giving a talk particularly on the holy name, or chanting of Hare Krishna, because from tomorrow, from the 9th of September till the 17th of September, which, if I'm correct, is next Sunday, we're celebrating the World Holy Name Week. So in a moment we're going to just see if we can get this video. There's about a 3-minute video about the World Holy Name Week. So I guess what we'll do to start with, while we're waiting to find this video. Oh, you've got it now. Okay, so we have it there.
Maybe can we put the volume up a bit, do you think? Or?
Yeah, do you want, you've got the remote there.
Oh, right, sorry.
That's it, yeah. Okay.
Krishna, Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
World Holy Name Week Ki Jai. Come, you can do a bit better than that. Okay, World Holy Name Week Ki Jai. Okay, so what is this World Holy Name Week? What's it all about? I just wanted to put things in perspective a little bit for anyone who's here for the first time. We're sometimes known as the Hare Krishna movement because we're famous for chanting Hare Krishna, just like we were doing just there. And in essence, this chanting of Hare Krishna, it's the most powerful means for self-realization in this age. And it's described as just like the easiest way to wake someone up who's sleeping is through sounds, the sound of the alarm clock, and we always give the example. Nowadays we hit the snooze button. I don't know who invented the snooze button. It's my one of my biggest problems, the snooze button. But anyway, the sound of the alarm wakes us up. So it's described in the ancient Vedic wisdom from India that the dormant spiritual nature of every living entity is reawakened through sacred sounds or mantra. And there's many different types of mantras. But it's described that this Hare Krishna mantra is the Maha Mantra, or the great mantra, the most powerful mantra, which reawakens the dormant spiritual nature of every living entity. Which is why we go out and we chant it in the streets, because when people hear the chanting, it reawakens the soul. And the nature of the soul is that it's eternal, full of knowledge and full of bliss. It's full of pleasure. We're all looking to be happy, and we're looking externally a lot of the time for things that make us happy, but actually it's all about reawakening that spiritual nature within, reawakening the soul, which is already full of happiness. So therefore, every day we're chanting this Hare Krishna mantra, but on this next week we're putting a special emphasis. We're getting back to basics, if you like. We're understanding the ABCs. We're putting more of an emphasis on chanting Hare Krishna ourselves and sharing the chanting of Hare Krishna with others, because we want to make people happy. No one, there's so many bad things going on in the world at the moment, right? We've Hurricane Irma, and then there's what's the hurricane that's coming next?
It's 3, right?
There's 3 hurricanes simultaneously going on at once, and there was just an earthquake in Mexico today. So there's so many bad things going on in the world all the time. People are suffering. So therefore we want to try and increase people's happiness by spreading spiritual happiness, by spreading the chanting of Hare Krishna with everyone else. Now sometimes, as practitioners, spiritual practitioners, we may not appreciate the chanting of Hare Krishna. Sometimes we take it for granted. They say that, familiarity breeds contempt. Or I like this one, casual means casualty. If we're casual, then we may have an accident. So, I'm going to ask a question to the audience here now. Who here has ever owned something? Perhaps you inherited some heirloom, some family heirloom or something, and you didn't realise how valuable it was. And then later on, at some point, like for instance, I read this morning on the internet that nowadays Lego, who here played with Lego when they were younger? So nowadays there are people selling individual Lego blocks for up to £500. Because, sometimes people want to complete their set, they've lost a piece because we don't understand its value, and now they're selling for up to £500 just for one block. I'm sure if you look down the back of your sofa, you'll probably find loads of different, or out in the garden, so many different blocks of Lego. So has anyone ever experienced that before? They've had something and they didn't realise how valuable it was. Well, I'll tell you a story. This is a true story that a few years ago in America, there was one man who collected stamps. We don't use stamps much nowadays because no one really sends letters or cards. Mostly it's emails. But in the old days, the good old days, when you sent a letter or you sent a postcard, then people would put on stamps. And of course they released different types of stamps, special stamps at different times of the year. Were you a stamp collector then, Andrea?
Yes.
Oh, you were?
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow. Do you still have your stamp collection?
For a short time. Yeah.
Ah. You may have been wishing, after I tell this story, that you'd kept onto those stamps. So there was this man, he was collecting stamps, and he eventually passed on, and then he passed on these stamps to his son. And actually his son was a bit of a, he'd fallen in on hard times, he was taking drugs, he was living in a bad way, and he needed some money. So he took this stamp collection to what in America they call a pawn shop, which is where you can take something, you can sell it, whatever it is, and you can get some money. I think we have them here as well, pawn shops. Cash for, what do they call them? Cash for gold, or all these things. So the man in the shop, because, sometimes shopkeepers, they're a little bit, he saw he could make a quick buck, so he said to the man, he said, I'll give you $500 for the whole collection of stamps. So the boy, he thought, fantastic, £500, $500. So he took the $500 and he went and spent it on whatever he spent it on. But the man who actually owned the pawn shop, he knew a little bit about stamps and he knew the market, and it was in the paper a couple of weeks later that just one of those stamps sold for $950,000. Can you imagine? Just one stamp sold for almost $1 million. So then, of course, this boy, he was a little disappointed, to say the least, that he'd only received $500 for all of the stamps. So what's the moral of the story? What is the moral of the story?
We don't know the value of things that we have.
Yeah, sometimes we don't know the value of something that we have. And we take it for granted. We take it cheaply. This can be applied to many different aspects of life. Sometimes we may not appreciate our partner. Put your hands up if you have a partner in here, a boyfriend or a girlfriend or a husband and wife. Okay, put your hands up if you sometimes take that partner for granted. Yeah, you can apply it to so many different things. But tonight we're focusing on the chanting of the Hare Krishna mantra, or the holy names of Krishna. We've all been given this priceless gift, and we may not fully appreciate it. So therefore, we're celebrating the World Holy Name Week between tomorrow and next Sunday. And therefore, the idea is that we're trying to put all our emphasis on understanding the importance that comes and the benefits that come from chanting Hare Krishna, to rekindle our enthusiasm, or if we've only just come across it, to give us some enthusiasm to try and chant this Hare Krishna mantra. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Now you may say, why are we talking about this today if it doesn't start till tomorrow? Any ideas? Why are we talking about it today if it doesn't start till tomorrow?
To get us ready for tomorrow, huh?
Yeah, to get us ready. When I was younger, I once went to see some motor racing at Donington Park. My dad used to live quite near Donington Park, and somehow or other through his business, he'd been given some tickets to go and see motor racing. So what they do, if you ever go to watch motor racing, they don't always, like if you watch Formula 1, then they don't always start from scratch, if you like. Sometimes they do what they call a rolling start. So they do a lap to start with, and everyone has to stay in the order. So then when they get over the start line, they're already going. They've already got some momentum. So like this, it starts tomorrow, but tonight we're trying to conjure up, we're having a rolling start. We're conjuring up some enthusiasm so that when tomorrow morning comes, as soon as we wake up, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. In other words, we take full advantage. We achieve our true potential by taking advantage of this great gift we've been given. Now, previously, this Holy Name Week was known as the Holy Name Day. And it was just one day of the year, which was the disappearance day of Srila Haridas Thakur, whose disappearance I think was on Tuesday, just gone. And why was it on this day? It was on this day because Haridas Thakur, he's known as the Namacharya, or he's the main teacher of chanting Hare Krishna. And does anyone know how many rounds a day he used to chant? Does anyone know?
He used to chant 300,000 times. I don't know the number of rounds, but 300 at least.
300,000 names, yeah. So, for instance, in the Hare Krishna mantra, there are 16 names. Hare Krishna, like this, Krishna. So there's 16 names. So he used to chant 300,000 names every day. Now, to put that into perspective, many of us, we chant 16 rounds a day. So one round is 108 mantras we chant on a japamala, or a string of meditation beats. So we chant Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. And if you do that 108 times, that's called one round. So many of us, we chant 16 rounds every day, which takes more or less 2 hours. 2 hours in the day. Now, if you multiply that by 4 times, you get 64 rounds. That's called a lakh, or 100,000 names. So every now and again, we have, what we call a japathon. You have a marathon, you have a japathon. So japathon is when you sit down and you chant 64 rounds. And more or less it takes you about 8 hours. Put your hands up if you've ever chanted 64 rounds before. Okay, how did you find it? Did anyone find it? Dan and Jaya, how did you find it when you chanted 64 rounds?
Yeah, I found it very enlivening. I found it, the more that you chant, the more natural it becomes, actually. And it also, it helps you to appreciate that you don't have to limit the number of rounds that you chant. You can always chant more. Sometimes if we have a prescribed number of rounds of 16 rounds, when we chant 16 rounds, that's it. We don't usually want to do it more.
Yeah.
But if you actually make an endeavour to do some prescribed number more than that, it helps you to get over that kind of obstacle.
Very nice. Yeah, so we gain some kind of taste, we get some kind of momentum for doing it. Now, who's ever tried to chant 192 rounds? That's 64 rounds times 3. Who's ever tried to do 192 rounds? Now, if you think about it, right, if it takes 8 hours, roughly, to chant 64 rounds, if you times that by 3, what have you got? 24 hours. So it's practically chanting all day. So Haridas Thakur, he used to chant all day and all night. Actually, he chanted a bit quicker, so he did have time to... He would eat something, and he would do some other things. But for the most part, he was just chanting Hare Krishna all day and all night, because he actually had a taste. Therefore, he's the Namacharya. So the Holy Name Day was the disappearance day of Haridas Thakur, and then it turned into the Holy Name Week as the momentum built up, and it included a few other important days: the appearance day of Bhaktivinoda Thakur, who's one of our great saints and one of our great teachers. The day that Srila Prabhupada accepted sannyas, and he spread this chanting of Hare Krishna all over the world. And then it became the Holy Name, well, it should be actually, it's still called the Holy Name Week, but it's over a week. It's about 9 days or something. So it's kind of the Holy Name Festival. Now, in general life, we also celebrate special days. Just like a few days ago, it was like Teachers' Day, a day when we celebrate teachers. And every now and again we have Mother's Day or Father's Day. And then sometimes they have things like they have National Non-Smoking Day. Or even then, I think now it's also National Non-Smoking Week or National Vegetarian Week. So, I'm going to ask a question now. Who here has ever tried to give up smoking? Put your hands up. Who found it easy, and who put your hands up if you found it easy to give up smoking? Okay, put your hands up if you found it hard to give up smoking. Yeah, it's not so easy. Not so easy. Actually, the only way I was able to give up smoking was by chanting Hare Krishna. And therefore every time, because you have to do something with your fingers, so therefore, and something with your tongue when you're smoking, you hold the cigarette and you're smoking with the tongue. And so therefore you just transfer that. So you finger the beads, Hare Krishna, and use your tongue to chant Hare Krishna. That was the only way I was able to give up. But the point is, it's not so easy. So therefore, every now and again, they have National Non-Smoking Week. And they put up loads of adverts on billboards, television, magazines. They have little features on the radio and on the television. I gave up smoking, and I did it with, this and that. Some people, they get hypnotized and so many different things. And there's kind of a whole propaganda to help people stop smoking. So therefore, it makes it a lot easier like that, you see. So in the same way as devotees or spiritual practitioners, every day, many of us, we're chanting this Hare Krishna mantra every day. But we find it hard. Who finds it hard sometimes, chanting Hare Krishna? Okay, so give me some things that you find hard about chanting Hare Krishna. What's hard about chanting? Because we've just chanted it. There's only 16 words. It's not hard to do. But if we try and do it regularly and we commit ourselves to a certain amount of chanting, what difficulties do we encounter when we're chanting Hare Krishna?
Distraction.
Vrinda.
Time.
Time. Yeah, there's no time, right?
Sometimes we are in a rush to go and it's a bit hard to chant quickly and so time is quite...
Yeah, it's amazing. I always get to the end of the day and I always think, there just wasn't enough hours today. I've got my to-do list, and my to-do list is enormous, and I've only ticked off one thing. So time, where do we find the time? Jagannatheshwari.
And the revelation of the amount of things we need to do while we're chanting. So everything we don't need to do, we start thinking about them the minute we start chanting. I need to clean up, I need to do this, I need to do that. That only happens when we're chanting.
Yeah. Who's experienced that before? Some people, some devotees, they take a little notebook because they get all their best ideas while they're chanting. So after every few mentions, they write down, oh yes, I've got to, do the washing, I've got to do this. You get your to-do list written out. So we're distracted, in other words, when we're chanting, because it's a type of meditation and the mind wanders. So meditation means you fix the mind again on the sound vibration. What other difficulties do we experience when we're chanting Hare Krishna?
The mind is sometimes negative and it says it's boring, it doesn't work, it's rubbish, but it's like a separate entity,
Yeah, it's repetitive, isn't it, chanting Hare Krishna? I mean, and sometimes your mind just turns off. Like we said, familiarity breeds contempt, casual means casualty, so sometimes we're just not into it. So therefore, every day we're chanting, but we're finding it a little bit difficult. So therefore, by celebrating and focusing on this Holy Name Week, it helps to reignite that enthusiasm for chanting Hare Krishna. It helps to, rekindle that taste, or give us an opportunity to get a taste for chanting Hare Krishna. And it's described that generally in spiritual life we make advancement in small increments, little steps. But by observing certain festivals, like Janmashtami, the appearance day of Krishna, like we celebrated a few weeks ago, and by celebrating such festivals as the World Holy Name Week, then it's described that one can take a quantum leap forward in their spiritual life. So therefore it shouldn't be taken cheaply. We should really take advantage. That's what we're trying to stress. And actually the mood then becomes contagious. When you see others chanting Hare Krishna and getting a taste, if you chant Hare Krishna with other people who enjoy chanting Hare Krishna, you also get a taste for it. Like if someone's leading a kirtan, and they really enjoy chanting Hare Krishna, they've actually got a taste. When you chant with them, you also get a taste. You get enthusiasm for chanting as well. Our association is very important. If we associate with spiritual practitioners who are serious and sincere and actually have a taste, we'll also get that taste. But if we associate with people who are more interested in material advancement than spiritual advancement, then we can also lose our enthusiasm. So therefore the mood becomes contagious. Every day I listen to one devotee called Vaisheshika Prabhu, And his mood is just so contagious. And they have one motto in their temple in ISKCON of Silicon Valley in California, and their motto is, keep the vibration flowing. Keep the vibration flowing. In other words, there's different vibrations going on all the time. Outside, we can hear, quite often we get a lot of police cars and ambulances and things coming up and down, the Westgate Road, or there's, sounds of adverts, songs on the radio. But if we make an endeavour to fill our mind with spiritual sound vibration, and particularly the chanting of Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, by listening to kirtan on your iPhone or your stereo, when you're cooking, when you're getting dressed, when you're in the shower, when you go to the gym. When I go to the gym, I listen to kirtans. It gets me in the mood. You can work the pump. Hare Krishna, you can. Yeah. So in other words, you can flood your consciousness with spiritual sound vibration. Keep the vibration flowing. And it's not easy to maintain this. Like right now, we're enthusiastic about it, and it creates some enthusiasm. But then tomorrow morning, we may have forgotten that again. So you have to keep on pushing. So what we're saying is, during this World Holy Name Week, just put everything else aside. Just make an experiment and see how happy you feel at the end of this week if you make an effort to keep the vibration flowing. You chant Hare Krishna, you sing Hare Krishna, you listen to Hare Krishna, or you keep spiritual sound vibration flowing. This way, our enthusiasm increases and we'll be 100% happy. Or your money back. You can make an experiment. If you don't feel 100% happier this time next week, and you have to know yourself, if you've really made the effort, then we'll give you £100, £100,000, £950,000 from that stamp. It's a fact. So therefore, during this Holy Name Week, we can make some personal goals. We can take some little vows. So I've written down a few things that we could do, or that I was thinking I'd like to do. Like during Kartik, there's a sacred month coming up in October, November, and it's described that we should take spiritual vows during that month. We do a little extra austerity, and by doing that extra austerity, we make spiritual advancement, and it pleases Krishna. So can anyone think of any personal goals they might like to set for themselves during the World Holy Name Week? Jagnatheshwari.
Get as many people as possible to say Krishna or Hare Krishna.
Good, so getting other people to chant Hare Krishna. Nice. Any other goals? Maybe personal goals?
Extra rounds?
Chanting some extra rounds, yeah. So if we're only chanting 1 round a day right now, then we might say, well, I'm going to chant 4 rounds a day for the World Holy Name Week. If we're not chanting any rounds at the moment, we can make an experiment and say, well, let me chant 1 round a day for the next week, see how it goes. Or if we're chanting 16 right now, let's say, well, I'm going to chant 25 rounds every day. So increase the amount. That's a good one. Any other ideas that we could do? Vrinda?
Reading more Prabhupada's books.
Aha. So how is that going to help with our chanting? Reading more of Srila Prabhupada's books?
When you read Prabhupada's book, you get more taste to chant.
Very good. Actually, that was going to be one of the things that we're going to mention. We have a nice book here called the Namamrita. And this is a collection of quotes from all of Srila Prabhupada's books, all about chanting Hare Krishna. The benefits we get from chanting, the importance of chanting, inspiration for chanting. We're going to read a couple of things from that. So yes, we could spend a bit more time doing some reading to become more inspired to chant. Because like they say, if the job's worth doing, it's worth doing properly. One of them. Yeah, if the job's worth doing, it's worth doing well. So like sometimes we may be chanting, but we're not really there. We're chanting and we're just getting them done, just like paying lip service. We're just doing it just for the sake of doing it, you know, just so we can say I've chanted my 16 rounds or I've chanted my 1 round a day, but we're not really listening, we're not really focusing, we're not chanting. So therefore, if you're going to do it, you should be inspired and chant properly. So by reading, that can help. What else can help? What other goals could we set for ourselves? I know you can maybe have, okay, one more, Jagannath Ekshri.
Listening to every mantra while chanting around.
Very good, listening to every mantra, yeah. I had one technique that I used to do. I don't do it so much nowadays, but perhaps that should be my goal for the World Holy Name Week. There's 16 names in each mantra. And therefore, you know, we're supposed to hear all 16 of the names. So what I used to do was I used to emphasize the first name on my first round. So in other words, Hare is the first name. So I used to chant Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare. And then on the second round, I would emphasize the second name, which was Krishna. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Hare Ram, Ram Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, like this. And then, so you emphasize one of the names on each of your rounds. And in that way, you really make an effort. And then you find that you have to listen to the whole mantra in order to do that, because you have to focus. Now, you can maybe have a little think amongst yourselves during this discussion, and then you may want to share at the end of the discussion if you want to make any little vows for yourself. You may not want to, you may want to keep it for yourself. But yeah, I've put increasing the number or increasing the quantity. I've also put increasing the quality. Maybe we won't try and chant more because, like Vrinda says, maybe we don't have time. Although Srila Prabhupada said one time, if you don't have time to chant your 16 rounds, does anyone know what Prabhupada said? Yeah, he said don't sleep. Yeah, he said sleep less. Not don't sleep, he said sleep less. We always have time to sleep, don't we? We never say, oh, there's just, I didn't have time to sleep last night, you know? Do we ever say there was no time to eat? So we all know, we've all got certain things that we do that we make time for, maybe watching television. So maybe you may make a vow that I'm going to watch 1 hour less of television this week, or 1 hour less of YouTube this week, or whatever it is, 1 hour less on Facebook this week, so I've got more time for chanting. You know yourself what it is. We've all got our things. So yeah, so if there's no time, eat less, sleep less, spend less time on YouTube or Facebook, or whatever it is. I've put we can learn prayers. And I have here, 8 prayers to the holy names. So these are called the Namastakam, or 8 prayers glorifying the chanting of Hare Krishna. So we can learn prayers that inspires us. Something like what Vrinda was saying about when we read more, we become inspired to chant. So this is one of my favourite verses glorifying the holy names or chanting of Hare Krishna. Actually, I learned all of these prayers at one point and I've forgotten them, so perhaps I should also try and learn them during this week. So I'll read you this one. O my dear holy name, you are the life and soul of the Veena of Devarshi Narad Muni. You are an eternal tidal wave of full transcendental nectar. I humbly fall at your lotus feet and beg for your causeless mercy to make me always fixed in your service, so that you may always dance tirelessly on my tongue. Kindly bless me that I may always be engaged in chanting you without cessation. Keep the vibration flowing outwards. Another goal I've written down is share the holy name with others. So for instance, this Sunday is a great opportunity for anyone who'd like to come along. It's the Great North Run this Sunday. And there's 57,000 people running the Great North Run. It starts in Newcastle and then it ends at South Shields. So for the last few years, Prema Sankirtan and Vishnu Priya and some of the other devotees, they've been along there to chant Hare Krishna with instruments and everything, while all the runners are coming past. So they chanted to 57,000 people. So this Sunday we're also going to do the same thing. From 10 o'clock in the morning on Sunday, we're going to meet at Heworth train station, or metro station, and there's a place near there where the runners come past, and we're going to be there for 2.5 hours or so till about 12:30, just chanting Hare Krishna, singing Hare Krishna. And we've got some video footage from last year, and some of the runners, they were smiling and they were kind of doing a little dance as they went past, because it's not easy running the Great North Run. It's a half marathon, about 13 miles or something like that. It takes a long time. You get tired, so they were appreciating the chanting. Oh, it gave them a second wind to finish the rest of the race, so we can share it with others. Anyway, you can have a little think. And some devotees, they said that in the old days, when this Hare Krishna movement first began in the West, because as we know, it's been practiced for thousands of years in India, but last year we celebrated our 50th anniversary in the Western world of this Hare Krishna movement, the International Society for Krishna Consciousness. And in the early days of this movement, before it was so well established, the devotees who were living in the temple, they would just literally go out and on the streets and they would chant Hare Krishna for about 10 hours every day. Every day. But it wasn't that they were being forced to do it. Okay, I want you to go out, and if I said to you tomorrow, Vinay, go out, well, you like chanting Hare Krishna, so you probably enjoy that. But if I just said to someone, okay, go out, just sing for 10 hours every day. But they enjoyed it, they were liking it and getting so much of a taste from it. And some of the devotees, the senior devotees, they said there was less problems in the old days because there was more focus on chanting Hare Krishna. So therefore nowadays, in our International Society for Krishna Consciousness, there's a style of management called kirtan management. And it just means that you just have more and more kirtan, you just lots and lots of kirtan. And then you realise that actually the things that you thought were problems, you think, actually, there's no problems at all. Sometimes we have some friction with someone, we fall out with someone or whatever it is, but if we just really focus on chanting, we suddenly start to see the good qualities in that person rather than the bad qualities. Our consciousness changes. We start to see the world, like they say, through rose-tinted spectacles. Like they say, when you fall in love. Who here has ever been in love? Put your hands up. Who here is still in love? Is anyone in love now and they can, echo?
A grand sweet song.
A grand sweet song, yeah. Like you walk with a skip in your, like a little dance in your step, right? And everything's great. Whoa, yeah. And you look at the world in a completely different way. Like else? Anything is possible to achieve. Yeah, that's good, isn't it? Because they, like if you're motivated to work hard, to go out and work hard, why? To please the person. Maybe you've got to pay, provide a nice house and, all these things. So you feel that anything's possible. In other words, you feel more confident, you feel more positive, you see the world in a different way. So this is the same. When we chant Hare Krishna, when we put a real emphasis, we start to see the world in a much more positive way. We start to see the good in people. We start to, have a real positive outlook on life. We start to feel that Prabhupada said impossible is the word in a fool's dictionary. Because, anything is possible. And actually, we're putting an emphasis on just chanting more, but actually it's said that all of our problems actually stem from inattentive chanting. And I have to say, personally speaking, that's one of my biggest problems, is that, chanting may be going on, but I'm not really paying attention. I'm just chanting just to get it done, just to finish my rounds. Sometimes you get to the end of your 16th round and you swing your bead bag into the corner of the room and you say, good riddance, I'll see you tomorrow morning, We may not openly say that, but that's kind of what we're feeling like, Prabhupada one time, he imitated the devotees and he pulled down his 16th round and he said, now I can do whatever I damn well like. In other words, okay, I've done my bit for you, Krishna. Okay, you should be happy with that. Now I'm going to do what I want to do. I want to go on Facebook, I want to go on YouTube, I want to go to the movies, I want to do this or that, the next thing, So we have our time and we have Krishna's time. So therefore we should focus on just being attentive while we're chanting. And to be attentive while we're chanting literally means we just hear. when we're chanting Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, inevitably the mind is going to wander onto other things. We're going to start thinking about the to-do list we've got to do. We're going to start thinking about this person we've fallen out with, or whatever it is. But Krishna says, wherever the mind wanders, due to its flickering and unsteady nature, he said, you just bring it back again. Bring the mind back to the sound vibration. So your mind wanders and you think, hang on, my mind's wandered, let me just try and hear the sound. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Rama, Rama. So we just try and bring it back again. So, and really, why do we chant inattentively? Why do we chant inattentively? What is the root cause of our inattentive chanting? Who said that? Someone said something there. No taste. Yeah. In other words, if we like doing it, like we said, we never forget to sleep. You know, we might forget, or say there's no time to chant Hare Krishna, but we never forget to eat. We never forget to sleep. You know, because, you know, we've got a taste for doing those things, you know. Sometimes that's the best time of the day, isn't it? When you get into bed and it's just like, oh, don't have to think about any other problems, you know. Although sometimes you can't sleep because your mind's worrying about things. So the problem is that there's no taste. We don't have a taste. Or maybe that sometime we've had a taste in the past of chanting Hare Krishna, but we've lost our taste because we've been casual.
So we don't think it's necessary. Eating and sleeping, we actually think it's necessary.
That's a good point
as well. But I agree with you.
Yes.
But we're not really convinced that it's necessary to chant Hare Krishna. You know. So yeah.
That's a good point. Yeah, it's necessary to eat. It's necessary to sleep. But we may not think it's so necessary to chant Hare Krishna. We might think, well, I'll just catch up tomorrow. You know. Or I'll chant Hare Krishna more attentively tomorrow. You know, or I'll work on this tomorrow. Rajendra?
I was also reading, like one way to overcome this inattentiveness and all the other offences is by associating with advanced devotees, pure devotees.
Yes.
So then this purity can rub a bit on us, sort of thing.
Yes.
And maybe we have not got enough association with devotees.
Yes.
And that's why we're not attentive enough.
Yes. Yeah. Association is so important. If we chant with those spiritual practitioners who are actually advanced and who do have a taste and who are regularly practicing and chanting and, you know, leading a spiritual way of life, then it rubs off on us. And if we don't have a taste, maybe we need more association. Which is why we have this centre here, so we can all come together. Birds of a feather flock together. And I don't know about you, but I'm feeling more inspired in my chanting just by being with all of you and just by chanting together and just by speaking about it. So, yeah, one thing is that Vishnu Jan Swami, he said if we have no taste for japa, which is chanting on beats, he said we should have more kirtan. We should have more kirtan. Anyway, there's many different things, but one thing I wanted to pick up on, which was what Vrinda mentioned, which is that we should, even in one sense, even more important than hearing the Hare Krishna mantra, is hearing about the Hare Krishna mantra and hearing about the benefits and the importance. So, you know, I said there's this nice book here, the Namamrita. We have some nice books in the shop there called Chanting Hare Krishna. It's just quotes, all from Srila Prabhupada's books about the importance and the benefits of chanting Hare Krishna, inspirational quotes. You can read books like this. There's just a nice quote here that I read, a couple of things about chanting Hare Krishna, and that by hearing about the holy names, we become more inspired to chant the holy names. So this is one verse here from the Caitanya Vallabha. Listen very carefully. I shall say this only once. As a result of chanting the Hare Krishna mantra, one makes such great advancement in spiritual life that simultaneously his material existence terminates and he receives love of Godhead. The holy name of Krishna is so powerful that by chanting even one name, one very easily achieves these transcendental riches. And here's another one. By performing congregational chanting of the Hare Krishna mantra, one can destroy the sinful condition of material existence purify the unclean heart, and awaken all varieties of devotional service. The result of chanting is that one awakens his love for Krishna and tastes transcendental bliss. Ultimately, one attains the association of Krishna and engages in his devotional service as if immersing himself in a great ocean of love. Okay, now listen to this one. It's the last one I'm going to read. It is the nature of the Hare Krishna Maha Mantra that anyone who chants it immediately develops his loving ecstasy for Krishna. So just like this, when we hear about chanting, then it inspires us, it encourages us, and we become inspired that if we just by chanting once, one can achieve perfection, one can burn off more karma than one can commit just by chanting Hare Krishna just once. And we hear in books like the Srimad Bhagavatam how Ajamil, he was a spiritual practitioner. In his youth he was very serious and sincere, but he kind of strayed away from the path by some bad association. One day he saw a man, a low-class man, shamelessly embracing a prostitute as he was walking through the forest, and then he saw this and it distracted his mind, and then he fell into an illicit relationship with this prostitute, and in the end he got into a relationship with this prostitute, and he spent many years away from the spiritual path. He just became a complete materialist, and he lost all his attraction for spiritual life through bad association. But then what happened was he called his son Narayan, which is a name for Krishna. And so at the time of death, because he had attachment for his son, he called Narayan, Narayan. And therefore, just by chanting, even though he wasn't chanting for Krishna, but because he chanted the holy names, therefore he achieved perfection eventually. It's a long story, we won't go into it. But in other words, sometimes we may hear these examples and we may think also, well, therefore, all I need to do is just chant Hare Krishna at the time of death. There's no need to just practice it. We might think, well, I can focus on that later, or I can just chant unconsciously. But the point is, we shouldn't use that as an excuse. We should try and cultivate some quality in our chanting. We're just going to say a couple more points, and then we're going to stop there, and we're going to do some chanting ourselves. But some years ago, several hundred years ago, there was one king in Bengal called Gopal Singh, and he made it the law in his kingdom in Bengal that everyone had to chant 64 rounds every day. So how many hours did we say that would take roughly? 8 hours. Could you imagine if that was the law, that every day you have to chant 64 rounds? It's bad enough trying to chant 16 sometimes, trying to squeeze in 2 hours. But you could actually be, like imprisoned or punished. The police, sometimes you walk out in the streets on a Friday night, the police are there in numbers on a Friday night because people have... But, you go out on a Friday night and the police come up to you, how many rounds have you chanted today? 48. Okay, you're coming with me down the station, you can finish your last 16 in the cells, So could you imagine, now, if you were like a farmer, right, in an agrarian kind of culture, like farmers, they have to start really early in the morning. They go out at like 5 o'clock. So sometimes we may chant 16 rounds, and we may chant like 8 rounds before we go to work, and we chant the other 8 when we come back, or whatever it is. But can you imagine you've got to chant 64 rounds? So let's say you might chant 4 rounds before you go to work, and then when you get home, you've got another 60 rounds to chant. I don't know about you, but sometimes if I get back from work and I've got some rounds to chant, sometimes in the old days, actually I used to chant 25 rounds every day. And then after some time stopped doing that. But what we used to do is on a festival day, sometimes we'd been serving all day and all night, like after Janmashtami, and then it'd be like 11 o'clock at night and I still had 10 rounds to chant. And my mind it wouldn't relish the thought of chanting another. But could you imagine if you had 60 rounds to chant after work? My God. So therefore that type of chanting is just trying to get them done. But we actually have to develop, some quality, some real feeling when we're chanting. And the good news is that if we make some little steps towards Krishna, then Krishna, he takes 100 steps towards you. You take one step towards him, he takes 100 steps towards you. So you will notice immediately, if you make the effort to try and focus on this World Holy Name Week, by trying to chant more attentively, by trying to chant more, by trying to share it with others, by reading more, you will notice immediately that Krishna will reciprocate with you. And therefore, instead of just surviving, sometimes we say, how are you doing? And it's like, just hanging on by the skin of my teeth, you know. I'm surviving, I'm still here. But we don't want to survive, we want to thrive. So therefore, we have to strive. And if you strive, then Krishna, he will reciprocate. And we should understand also that it is the goal that at some point to continuously chant Hare Krishna. One time, Malati, who was one of Srila Prabhupada's early disciples, she was in the hospital. And Srila Prabhupada came to see her in hospital. And he asked her, how are you doing? She said, I'm okay, but because I've been sick, therefore I've not been able to do any service. All I've been able to do is chant Hare Krishna. And Prabhupada said, this is the goal. This is the goal, just to chant Hare Krishna continuously. But because you know, he said, you European and American boys and girls, you're so restless, therefore I've created so many services for you to do, you know, to keep you busy. But actually this is the goal, just to be able to constantly chant Hare Krishna like Haridas Thakur, but we cannot do that. Therefore we engage in many different activities. We cook for Krishna, we read about Krishna, and especially we give Krishna to others. And this is the last point I wanted to make. This is a little quote here. So, we've made the point that we want to try and keep the vibration flowing. We want to try and tune into this sound vibration. Just like when we tune into a radio station, you know, you can tune into your favourite radio, whatever it is, I don't know what you listen to. Sometimes, if I'm on a long journey, and sometimes listening to a lecture or something, sometimes I drive down from meetings down in London, it's about 5 or 6 hours on the way back, and I'll tune in, you know, to the lecture, it's making me fall asleep, you know. So therefore sometimes for a couple of songs I put on a radio station, and I sometimes listen to 80s. There's one on, what is it? Digital radio, it's like classic 80s or something. It reminds me of when I was growing up. It's Maya really, I shouldn't do it, but for a couple of songs it kind of wakes me up. Oh, I'm awake again, you know, and then I can listen to Hare Krishna. So, you know, you're tuning in. The radio station is somewhere else, but you can tune in. So it's described that this sound vibration of Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. It is coming directly from the spiritual realm. Coming from Goloka Vrindavan. And we can tune into it. Our heart is like a receptacle. So we have to tune in by this attentive chanting, and then we can be constantly tuned into Krishna FM, 24 hours a day. What is the wavelength? Like we said, 97.9, that's Radio 1. So what is the wavelength for tuning into Hare Krishna? For one thing, it's our desire. We have to have the desire to do it. And secondly, it's being attentive, like this. So just
the third thing I believe is love towards Krishna.
Love towards Krishna, yes. Yeah, but even in the beginning, we may not have much love for Krishna, but we do it out of obedience. We do it anyway. Or in this case, we make an experiment. We say, for the World Holy Name Week, I'm just going to make an experiment. I'm going to put some emphasis on chanting and hearing Hare Krishna, and I'm going to see what effect it has. And this is the effect. This is a quote from Srila Prabhupada. He said, we should always remember the danger of Maya's influence and endeavour to save ourselves from her great power. So Maya is like the illusory energy that distracts us from our spiritual life, distracts us from spiritual advancement. You know, all these different... Nowadays we have the weapons of mass distraction. We have weapons of mass destruction, and then we have the weapons of mass distraction, like the television, Facebook, the internet. Don't get us wrong, we're not against these things. In fact, this is going out live on Facebook just now. But the point is, we don't want to become distracted. So therefore, Maya distracts us. So, the danger of Maya's influence and endeavour to save ourselves from her great power, we must therefore always merge in the transcendental mellow of Kirtan Ras. For Kirtan Ras, which is constantly hearing and chanting the Hare Krishna mantra, for Kirtan Ras is the safest situation within this material world. Shri Harinam Sankirtan Yogya Ki, Srila Prabhupada Ki, Nitai Gaur Premanande, World Holy Name Week Ki. Okay, so just before we chant a bit of Hare Krishna, we're just going to say, does anyone have any reflections, which is something you've heard during the class, which you has stuck in your mind? Rajendra?
Actually, I was just thinking about something to do for this week. Like, maybe we could call it the Holy Name Challenge. So if anyone wants to put their name on a piece of paper, right, and the challenge is to hit the target that you've set upon yourself. And next week, the people who put their names on, if they don't have beads, they can borrow a set of beads and go back home with that. And they can tell us whatever they've achieved, and there will be prizes as well when you come in next week. So I don't know if anyone would like to participate.
Yeah, that's a good idea. We can set ourselves a challenge. In fact, in some temples they do that, the Hare Krishna challenge. If someone's coming for the first time, we give them a set of beads and we say, okay, you can try chanting one round every day, which takes about 10 minutes or something like that, you know. Try it every day, at least one round. And then by next week, if you liked it, then you can keep the beads and you can just carry on chanting. And if not, you can give them back. But do you know what's the rate of giving the beads back? None. No one ever gives them back because everyone enjoys it. So yeah, we can set a little challenge. So perhaps we can have a little think about that. So you're suggesting that people can...
They can write their names on a piece of paper. And next week, they can write how many rounds they've done this week. And then there will be prizes for everybody that's on me.
Okay, so you can see Rajendra afterwards for this. This is a good idea. Okay, the Hare Krishna challenge. Good idea. Yeah, it's good to set ourselves a little challenge, because if we're not challenged, then, if we only ever do things that are easy, we don't really get anywhere. You know, it's like if you go to the gym, you have to lift heavy weights. You can't just lift easy ones because you don't really get anywhere. So you have to set yourself a fresh challenge. Any other reflections from the discussion? Lisa, good to see you back again, by the way. Welcome back from India.
I was in a restaurant and I left half a cheesecake to be here.
Wow!
Because of association, you know.
Wow.
So, and when I'm chanting on the morning time and I don't really feel it, I'm not feeling it, I'm just doing it, I get the photos, I get the pictures of Hare Krishna, and then I start feeling it more, because I'm looking and I'm chanting for him, because I visually see him.
Nice.
So that's a thing I do for my barriers.
Yeah, it's good. We have to engage all the senses, so we hear the sense of hearing, talking, the tongue, and also sight. We can look at pictures of Krishna, we can look at the deities, and this also helps to focus our mind. Good. Any other reflections? Or maybe something, a little personal goal you'd like to set yourself? Hare Krishna, nice to see you.
Hare Krishna. Just the value of now, as Krishna says, I'm sitting in the name, my name. So my name is just the same powers as me.
Yes.
But sometimes he says, maybe the name is more powerful than me because it's with you all the time.
Nice.
The moment you realize it, I'm with you. I won't delay even by a fraction of a second meeting you.
Nice.
The moment you realize I am sitting in the name. So it's up to you when to realize it. The percentage of faith you put in that belief, the closer I am.
Nice. Thank you for sharing that. Yeah, Krishna and his name are non-different. So when we chant Hare Krishna, we're associating with Krishna directly. And Krishna, he's Rameti Krishna, he's the reservoir of all pleasure. So, we all want to be happy and we all find different things that give us pleasure. But if you go to the reservoir of all pleasure, Krishna, then you'll be constantly satisfied, constantly happy. So by remembering that Krishna and his name are non-different and that we can associate with Krishna whenever we chant his name, this gives us great inspiration. Thank you. Okay, so we'll stop there and we're going to chant Hare Krishna now. I'm going to ask actually Jagannath Ashri if she'd like to come and chant Hare Krishna on the harmonium. And we're going to chant for about 15 minutes or something, and then we're going to serve something to eat, some prasadam, which is food that's been offered to Krishna with love and devotion. This is also a great way to make spiritual advancement.